You were in administration for 9 years. What did you do?
Right Along Live.
I feel compelled, Mr. Speaker, first of all, to commend the leader of government business for his sterling presentation to the Honorable House when he presented his minister's statement specific to the creation of housing, and for his additional clarifications that he raised in the question of equity. But, Mr. Speaker, at the risk of being political, I will be so. Because I want us to be accountable to people. These homes were completed at least, Mr. Speaker, at least 1 year. At least 1 year. At least. And in some instances, more than 1 year before there was a change in administration. So my learned and distinguished friends had the opportunity to craft any policy they wanted in relation to these homes. They could have given them out if they wanted to. They could have rented them if they wanted to. They could have sold them if they wanted to. They could have done a combination of all three. They kept them locked up under secure keys. The public couldn't even go. I went to the current housing scheme. I was not permitted to enter. The security guard told me I cannot even come on the compound. Why? Why, Mr. Speaker? Wait for almost a year and a half. And then miraculously, in the case of Carrick and P.T. Martinica, mere weeks before the election, you hurry down some scurry names and issue some letters and tell people you're putting them in the homes, in the apartments. Why? So when we come here, we talk about, we care about people. And some people can't afford. Of course, we know some people can't even afford the 250. You were in administration for 9 years. What did you do? Well, COVID, what did you do? So, Mr. Speaker, we accept that the housing situation in Grenada is dire. We accept that the responsibility now falls to us to try and address this situation. But let us be real, Mr. Speaker. If, and there are many persons, because you could just go down on St. John Street and you can see people on Melville Street sleeping in the bus terminal. You can go on St. John Street and see people sleeping. There are homeless people all over Grenada. Have we constructed homeless homes in the last 9 years to house them? No. So let's really talk about the poor and vulnerable now. Have we constructed homes to deal with the addicts? Whether it's alcohol or drug addicts? No. So, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that it is the government's responsibility to try and address the housing situation for those who are most vulnerable. These apartments, respectfully, Mr. Speaker, are not the ideal home setting for doing so. And there are obvious reasons why. There are apartment type 3-story buildings that our culture and our historical practice is not used to. We are not used to 3-story buildings. We are not. And therefore, if you're going to ask some of the most vulnerable, for example, persons in the 60s and 70s to go into those buildings, it will not suit them. Sorry. When the buildings were constructed, no laundry facilities were put in place. Where is a 65 or 70-year-old going to? They can't use those. So we obviously, Mr. Speaker, have to find alternative housing arrangements to treat with it. And so what this initial phase 2 is meant to do is to give persons who, yes, are at the lowest income, but who are employed, an opportunity to own a home so that it is theirs, so that you're not beholden to some MP or caretaker or some no-good politician who want to basically tell you, rent, and I can always throw you out if you don't vote for me, or put you in a building with no arrangements for the common parts of the building to be maintained. Who's maintaining the hallway? If you're in a 3-story building and there's a leak at the top floor, who's maintaining the roof? Who's maintaining the steps? Who's maintaining common facilities, the grounds? You could go to Subies, you can go to Mount Crusher and see that. That is a policy that failed, because if you put people into a building and there is no policy and no resources to maintain it, to care for it, it will deteriorate amongst them, and they will still end up with nothing, even if they pay rent. And you keep them poor. That's what it's designed to do. Keep them coming back to you. All of us, Mr. Speaker, grew up, all of us grew up, for the most part, in wooden homes. We aspired. We had some ambition. Our parents, the villages, the people encouraged us. Some people would start by building their own little brick and continue and continue. So, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that there are many citizens who, not just by happenstance or by luck or by sickness, but by deliberate government policy, have put them in a position where in their 30s and their 40s, they do not have the opportunity to own a home, and they do not have the opportunity to buy a piece of land. Deliberate government policy by this administration, this former administration. So when you hire people and you keep them as imanis at $700 for 10 years, of course they will never be able to own a home or afford. It's not sickness. It's not accident of birth. It's deliberate government policy. So you have to come back all the time. How you own a home? So when we are giving them the opportunity now to pay $250 to own their own home, that is what empowerment is about. So don't come in this house and play self-righteous about some people can't afford. If you employ people for 10 years and call them money, keep them temporary. Don't even pay a nice for them. You can fire them at will. They can't even buy food. So we don't need to talk about housing. And you are telling them and their children that that is their lot in life, that they're destined for that. And I keep saying this, with these policies, would you put your children on it? Are you going to send your child to become any money? Are you going to accept that it's okay for your child to work for $700 for 10 years for the state of Grenada? Mr. Speaker, let's be clear here. With the abstention of the Honorable Member for St. Patrick West, the reality of Grenada today was created by the distinguished leader of His Majesty's government. He ran Grenada for 23 years. That's too short of a quarter century. And if it's good policy, we live with it. If it's bad policy, we live with it. So the fact is, outside of the dear and kind assistance of our friends from the Republic of China, since Hurricane Ivan, it's going to be 20 years next year, there has been no government housing program that has built homes. There's one that has attempted to help people repair their homes. And what it has done, it gives you $17,000 if you are approved. And it's random. It is arbitrary. And it is political. That is what we inherited. So if it is $17,000 worth of material and it can't complete the house, too bad for you. Because you're still in the same position. And as a state, you will end up spending millions and millions of dollars and you still look wrong and people's housing stock has not improved. And as the minister said, it's not just about housing, it's about building communities. So we like to politicize everything. We like to pretend to people that we care about them. But we don't live like that. We don't live in the same place they live. We certainly ain't eating like them. We're not sending our children to the schools that they are going. So don't come in here and pretend that we're self-righteous. I go by them. Last Friday, I took the housing coordinator, whatever title he has, to a village in Lakalum. And he said, PM, people living here. I said, keep walking. And when he went through the track, he saw the 3 and the 4 and the 5 and the 6 house, and I was like, yes, people living here. And I want you to come And I want you to go into the house with me so you see the condition that people live in. And as people would say, his skin crawled when he saw the condition. So that is what we are dealing with here. So don't come with this talk and make it seem as if we don't understand the plight of the people who are poor and vulnerable. We understand the plight. We understand that we need to help them to get out of it and not to exploit them. So nobody here knows poverty as I know it. But poverty is not an excuse for not having ambition, for not having pride. It is not an excuse for insisting that our people live in unhygienic circumstances, and for encouraging them to do better and encouraging their children to do better. And you could give people $50 for the rest of their life. They will still be poor. Or you could give them a house and give them an opportunity to be responsible. Give them an opportunity to take pride in what they have and pass it on to the next generation so that Grenada can go forward, not stay in the muck and grow the percentage of the population that's poor. And it baffles me, Mr. Speaker, that I never hear the conversation about moving people from the poor to the middle class or from the middle class to the upper class. It is always about poor. So you're stuck. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, we will become unstuck. We will move forward. And we will grow people from out of poverty into prosperity, as was so eloquently put by the leader of government business. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Right along life.